The sky above Threshold 9 turned orange as pieces of metal fell through the atmosphere. The colony ship broke apart like a toy in the hands of an angry child. Fire trailed behind each piece as gravity pulled them down to the planet's surface. On the ground, automated sensors picked up the disaster and sent warnings to nearby stations. Something big was coming down, and it was coming down fast. Inside the largest piece of the falling ship, Kira held onto a support beam with both hands. Around her, 60 of her sisters screamed as the ship spun out of control. They were Velrathi, a race of warriors known across 3 systems for their strength and honor. But right now, strength meant nothing. They were falling, and there was nothing any of them could do about it. The impact came hard. Metal screamed against rock. The ship slid across the barren ground for what felt like forever before finally stopping. Dust filled the air, making it hard to see or breathe. Kira pulled herself up and checked her body. Bruises and cuts, but nothing broken. She was lucky. Around her, other Velrathi warriors were doing the same, helping each other stand. "Report," Kira called out. Her voice was strong despite the pain in her ribs. Nari, her second-in-command, limped over. Blood ran down the side of her face from a cut on her forehead. "We lost 8 in the crash," she said quietly. 12 more are badly hurt. The rest will live." Kira felt the weight of those words. 8 of her sisters gone. She had led them on this journey to find a new home, and now 8 would never see it. She pushed the grief down. There would be time to mourn later. Right now, they needed to survive. The Velrathi spent the next hours searching the wreck. They found some supplies, food packs, water containers, medical kits. But not enough. Not nearly enough for 60 warriors. Kira did the math in her head. If they were careful, they had food for maybe 10 days. Water for less than that. After that, they would starve. Mira, one of the younger warriors, came running up to Kira. "Chieftain, we found the communication system. It's damaged, but we got one message out before it died completely. We told them where we are." "Good," Kira said.
"Help will come." But as the days passed, no help arrived.
Instead, ships appeared in the sky above them. They circled, watching, but never landed. The Velrathi waited, growing hungrier with each passing day. On the 4th day, a small ship finally descended. Hope rose in Kira's chest. Maybe these were rescuers. The ship landed 100 meters from the crash site. 3 figures in environmental suits stepped out. They carried scanning equipment and moved toward the wreck. The Velrathi came out to meet them, weapons lowered but ready. Kira stepped forward to speak, but the strangers didn't come in peace. They saw the Velrathi and immediately raised their weapons. One shouted something in a language Kira didn't understand. It sounded angry, threatening. These weren't rescuers. They were scavengers here to pick through the wreck and take anything valuable. Kira's hunger turned to rage. Her people were dying, and these thieves wanted to steal from them. She roared and charged. The Velrathi warriors followed. The fight was short and brutal. The scavengers ran back to their ship and took off, barely escaping. One didn't make it back. He lay on the ground, unconscious but alive. The Velrathi let him live. They weren't murderers, but they took his supplies. News of the attack spread fast. More ships came, but they stayed in orbit. The Velrathi could see them up there, watching. On the 6th day, a military ship arrived. A voice spoke from speakers translated into basic galactic standard. "This is Galactic Council security. The area around the crashed vessel is now under quarantine. All ships are ordered to maintain distance. The hostile aliens will be contained until a decision is made." Hostile aliens. The word stung Kira. They weren't hostile. They were desperate. But she understood how it looked. They had attacked those scavengers. From the outside, it seemed like the Velrathi were dangerous savages who couldn't be approached. The quarantine meant no help was coming. The Galactic Council was going to let them die out here rather than risk more attacks. Kira called a meeting with all the warriors who could still stand. They gathered in the largest part of the crashed ship that still had a roof. "They've abandoned us," Kira told them honestly. "The galaxy thinks we're too dangerous to save. They'll wait until we're too weak to fight, then they'll come collect our bodies." Angry voices rose, but Kira raised her hand for silence. "We are Velrathi," she continued. "We are warriors. We do not beg for mercy, and we do not show weakness. If we die here, we die with honor. But we're not dead yet. We conserve our supplies. We stay strong. And if anyone else tries to steal from us, we show them what happens when you cross Velrathi warriors." The warriors raised their weapons and shouted their agreement. But Kira could see the truth in their eyes. They were scared. She was scared too. They had maybe 5 days of food left. After that, hunger would make them weak. After that, they would start dying one by one. Nari approached Kira after the meeting. "Do you really think we can survive this?" Kira looked up at the sky where the ships circled like carrion birds waiting for prey to die. "I don't know," she admitted, "but we're going to try." That night, Kira sat alone in what used to be the command deck. She thought about her people, about the 8 who had died and the 52 who still lived. She thought about how they had traveled so far looking for a new home, only to be trapped and abandoned on this dead world. She thought about honor and pride, and how sometimes those things were luxuries the desperate couldn't afford. But she was Velrathi. Pride was everything. If she showed weakness now, if she begged the galaxy for help, she would lose the respect of her warriors. They would rather die with honor than live with shame, so she would lead them as best she could for as long as she could and hope that somehow something would change. Above them, the stars watched silently. The galaxy had made its decision. The Velrathi were on their own. Hyun wiped sweat from his forehead as he finished loading cargo containers onto his ship. The trading post on Station Gamma 7 was always hot, always crowded, and always full of gossip. Today, everyone was talking about the same thing. "The dangerous aliens on Threshold 9, did you hear?" a Kraven merchant said to his neighbor. "They attacked another salvage team yesterday. Ripped right through their suits. Animals, I tell you. The council should just bomb the site," another voice added. "Can't have violent species running wild on frontier planets." Hyun listened quietly as he worked. He had been running supply routes between colonies for 3 years now. He knew this sector better than most, and he knew Threshold 9. It was a harsh planet, barely habitable. Nothing grew there naturally. Anyone stranded there would be in serious trouble. What did the aliens look like? Hyun asked the Kraven merchant. The merchant turned, his multiple eyes blinking. Tall, blue-skinned, built like fighters. "All females from what the reports say. They're guarding that crashed ship like it's a fortress. And they attacked on sight?" "Well," the merchant hesitated. "The salvage teams were trying to access the wreck. Probably thought there was valuable tech inside. But yes, the aliens attacked without warning." Hyun nodded slowly. Something about this didn't sit right with him. He went back to his ship and pulled up the incident reports on his datapad. There were 6 recorded encounters with the aliens. He watched the footage carefully. In each case, the aliens only attacked when someone crossed a certain boundary around the crash site. They never pursued beyond that line. They never attacked ships in orbit. They just defended their territory. These weren't mindless savages. They were scared people protecting what little they had left. Hyun's AI co-pilot, a simple program with a pleasant voice, spoke up. "Hyun, your next delivery is to Outpost Kepler. It's on the opposite side of the system from Threshold 9. "Change of plans," Hyun said. "We're going to Threshold 9 instead. That area is under quarantine. We could lose our trading license." "Maybe, but I need to see something first." Hyun spent the next hour loading his ship with extra supplies. Food packets, water containers, medical kits, warming blankets. He emptied half his credits buying supplies, knowing he might never get paid back. His co-pilot warned him 3 more times that this was a bad idea. Hyun ignored it. The flight to Threshold 9 took 6 hours. As he approached, the quarantine warnings lit up his communications panel. Multiple ships in orbit hailed him, ordering him to turn back. Hyun switched on his transmitter. "This is civilian hauler Dawn 7. I'm not here to salvage or attack. I'm bringing supplies to the crash survivors. Please let me pass." "Negative, Dawn 7, a military voice responded. "Those aliens are extremely dangerous. Turn back now or be fired upon." "I'm going in unarmed," Hyun said calmly. "If they kill me, that's on me. But I have to try." There was a long silence. Then, "You're insane, human. But we won't stop you. Your death, your choice. Good luck." Hyun guided his ship down through the atmosphere. The crash site came into view. A long scar across the rocky ground with a broken ship at the end. He landed his hauler about 200 meters away, well outside what he figured was their defensive perimeter. Then he waited. It didn't take long. Figures emerged from the crashed ship. Even from this distance, Hyun could see they were big, taller than humans, powerfully built. They carried weapons that looked primitive but effective, sharp blades that caught the sunlight. They moved like trained soldiers, spreading out to surround his ship. Hyun took a deep breath. This was the moment. He could still fly away. Part of him wanted to. But he thought about those 6 attack reports, about scared people defending themselves, about how the entire galaxy had decided these strangers weren't worth saving. He opened the cargo door and stepped out, hands raised high where they could see them. No weapons, no armor, just a human in a simple flight suit, standing in the hot wind of an alien world. The warriors stopped about 20 meters away. There were 12 of them in a semicircle around him. Their blue skin was darker than he expected, almost purple in places. They had sharp features and eyes that looked completely black from this distance. One stepped forward, clearly the leader of this group. She was slightly taller than the others, with scars on her arms and face that spoke of many battles. She pointed a blade at him and spoke. Hyun didn't understand the language, but the meaning was clear. Leave or die. Hyun slowly lowered his hands and pointed to his ship, then made eating motions with his hands. He pointed to his mouth, his stomach, the universal sign for food. Then he pointed to the warriors. The leader warrior said something sharp to the others. A few laughed, but it wasn't a friendly sound. She spoke again, louder this time, and gestured with her blade for him to leave. Hyun didn't move. Instead, he walked slowly back to his ship. The warriors tensed, weapons ready. But Hyun just reached into the cargo bay and pulled out a container. He carried it halfway to the warriors and set it on the ground. Then he backed away. The leader approached cautiously. She kicked the container open. Inside were food packets, clearly labeled with pictures showing they were edible. The leader looked at the food, then at Hyun, then back at the food. Confusion crossed her face. She said something that sounded like a question. Hyun just gestured to the food, then to her, then smiled. Take it. It's yours. The leader warrior grabbed one of the packets and threw it back at Hyun's feet. Then she pointed her blade at him again and shouted. The message was even clearer this time. We don't want your charity. Leave now. Hyun picked up the packet and opened it. He took out a nutrition bar and bit into it, chewing slowly. Then he sat down right there on the rocky ground, cross-legged, and continued eating. He took out a water bottle and drank. The warriors watched him like he was the strangest thing they had ever seen. After a few minutes, the leader made a disgusted sound and turned away. She barked orders, and most of the warriors retreated back toward the crashed ship, but 4 stayed behind, watching Hyun from a distance. Guards making sure he didn't try anything. Hyun finished his meal slowly. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of red and purple. It was actually beautiful in a harsh sort of way. When he was done eating, he stood up, stretched, and walked back to his ship. The guards watched but didn't stop him. Before going inside, Hyun pulled out 3 more containers of supplies and stacked them near the first one. Then he waved at the guards and went into his ship. Through the window, he watched as darkness fell. Hours later, when the guards thought he was asleep, they came and took the containers. Hyun smiled to himself in the darkness. It was a start. The next morning, Hyun woke before sunrise. He made himself breakfast, then carried another container of supplies out and placed it near where the others had been. Then he sat down in the same spot as yesterday and waited. The warriors came again. Same group, same leader. They looked angry to see him still there. The leader shouted at him, making aggressive gestures. Hyun just sat calmly and ate his breakfast. He was pretty sure she was telling him to leave and never come back. He nodded pleasantly and took another bite of food. This became the routine. Every morning, Hyun brought supplies and sat at the perimeter. The warriors stopped threatening him after the 3rd day. They just watched him, confused and suspicious. By the 5th day, they barely paid attention to him at all. The guards still stayed, but they sat down too, almost like they were keeping him company. On the 6th day, something changed. On the 6th morning, Hyun noticed something different about the guards. They looked weaker. One of them, a younger warrior with fewer scars, was sitting instead of standing. Her hands shook slightly as she held her weapon. Hyun had seen hunger before. These warriors were starving. He went back to his ship and thought carefully. He had been bringing supplies for 6 days now, and they had been taking them at night. But it clearly wasn't enough. Either they had too many mouths to feed, or their pride was preventing them from taking more. Probably both. Hyun loaded up his cargo hauler with everything he had left. Food, water, medicine, even some tools and spare parts that might be useful. He brought it all out and stacked it at the perimeter. The guards watched with those dark eyes, but nobody moved to stop him. As Hyun was placing the last container, he heard a sound. The young warrior who had been sitting suddenly stood up, took 2 steps, and collapsed. The other guards rushed to her side, but Hyun was closer. He ran over without thinking. Before he could reach her, cold metal touched his throat. The leader warrior, Nari, he had heard the others call her, had moved faster than seemed possible. Her blade pressed against his skin, hard enough to draw a thin line of blood. She said something in her language, low and dangerous. Hyun froze. He looked down at the collapsed warrior, then back at Nari. Slowly, very slowly, he reached into his pocket. Nari pressed the blade harder, but Hyun just pulled out a small silver packet. He held it up so she could see the medical symbol on it. Emergency nutrition pack. Nari's eyes flicked between Hyun, the packet, and her fallen comrade. Her hand didn't move from his throat. Hyun took a chance. He tossed the packet gently toward the collapsed warrior and then backed away, hands raised. Nari could kill him easily, but he had to trust that she would see he was trying to help. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Nari lowered her blade slightly. She barked orders to the other guards. One of them grabbed the packet and tore it open, squeezing the thick liquid into the young warrior's mouth. Within seconds, color returned to the girl's face. Her eyes fluttered open. Nari looked at Hyun with an expression he couldn't quite read. Then she sheathed her blade and turned away, helping her comrade stand. The warriors retreated toward the crashed ship, moving slower than usual. Hyun watched them go, his heart still pounding. That evening, something unexpected happened. As the sun set, a single figure approached from the crashed ship. It wasn't Nari. This warrior was even taller, carried herself with absolute authority, and had more scars than any of the others. She walked right up to the perimeter where Hyun sat and stopped. They looked at each other in the fading light. Hyun stood slowly and bowed, the way his grandmother had taught him to show respect. The warrior watched this gesture with curiosity. Then she placed her hand over her heart and said one word. Kira, her name. She was telling him her name. Hyun copied the gesture and said, Hyun. Kira nodded. She pointed at the supplies Hyun had brought, then at him, then made a questioning gesture. Why? Why was he doing this? Hyun thought about how to answer without words. He pointed at Kira, then at the crashed ship, then made a gesture like something falling. He pointed at the ground. Crash. Then he pointed at his ship, at the supplies, at himself. He made a gesture like offering something, then pointed at his heart. Because it was the right thing to do. Kira studied him for a long time. Then she spoke in her own language. The words were fluid and strong, with a rhythm like poetry. Hyun didn't understand any of it, but he listened respectfully. When she finished, she looked at him expectantly. Hyun shook his head. I don't understand, I'm sorry. Kira frowned. She thought for a moment, then knelt and picked up a rock. She drew in the dust. A simple picture, a circle with points around it. She pointed at it, then at the supplies, then made a gesture like refusing something, pushing it away. Then she drew another picture, 2 circles side by side with a line connecting them. She pointed at this, then at Hyun, then at herself, and nodded. Hyun looked at the drawings. The first picture, taking charity, she was refusing. The second picture, equals working together, she would accept. Understanding dawned. Their pride wouldn't let them accept charity, but they could accept a trade between equals. A trade, Hyun said, even though she couldn't understand his words. He drew his own picture, a box with supplies, an arrow pointing from him to her, then a question mark. What could they offer in return? Kira smiled for the first time. It changed, her whole face making her look younger despite the scars. She drew a picture of a figure with a weapon standing in front of smaller figures. Protection. They could offer their skills as warriors. Hyun's mind raced. The frontier colonies always needed security, raiders, dangerous wildlife, equipment that needed guarding. And here was a tribe of trained warriors with nothing to do and nowhere to go. It was perfect. He nodded enthusiastically. Yes, that could work. Over the next hour, despite not sharing a language, Hyun and Kira worked out the basics of an agreement. He would bring supplies and help them establish a settlement. In return, they would offer their services as guards and protectors. It wasn't charity. It was business. When they finished, Kira stood and offered her hand in what seemed like a universal gesture. Hyun shook it. Her grip was strong enough to make his bones ache, but he didn't flinch. She respected that. She called out, and warriors appeared from the darkness, carrying the supplies Hyun had brought. But this time, they didn't sneak. They came openly, with dignity. The young warrior from that morning, her name was Mira, Hyun learned through gestures, approached him shyly. She made a gesture of thanks, placing both hands over her heart and bowing. Hyun returned the gesture. She smiled, and for a moment she didn't look like a scary alien warrior. She looked like a young woman who had been frightened and hungry, and was grateful to be alive. That night, Hyun was invited into the crashed ship for the first time. It was damaged badly, with exposed wires and buckled walls, but the Velrathi had made it livable. They had carved out spaces for sleeping, for eating, for gathering. On the walls, they had painted symbols that Hyun guessed were important to their culture. Kira led him to a central area where all the warriors had gathered. 52 warriors, ranging from Mira's young age to veterans with gray in their dark hair. They all watched him with cautious curiosity. Kira spoke to them in their language, gesturing to Hyun several times. When she finished, the warriors struck their weapons against the floor in unison. The sound was like thunder. Nari approached Hyun. She touched the small cut on his neck where her blade had drawn blood that morning. She said something that sounded apologetic. Then she drew a small symbol on his forehead with some kind of paint. The other warriors made approving sounds. Hyun didn't know what any of it meant, but he understood the feeling. He had been accepted. These people who trusted no one, who had been abandoned by the galaxy, had decided to trust him. As he left that night to return to his ship, Hyun looked up at the stars. Somewhere up there, ships were still watching, still waiting for the dangerous aliens to die off. But things were going to be different now. He had made a promise to Kira and her warriors, and he was going to keep it. The next morning, Hyun used his ship's long-range communicator to contact the frontier settlements. It was time to change the story about the Velrathi. It was time to show the galaxy that these weren't dangerous aliens to be feared. They were people who deserved a chance, just like everyone else. The real work was about to begin. The response to Hyun's messages was not what he expected. Most settlements either ignored him completely or sent back angry warnings. Those aliens are dangerous. Don't bring that trouble here. The council quarantined them for a reason. Only one settlement replied with interest. It was a small mining colony called Digging Deep, about 200 kilometers from the crash site. The manager's name was Taeyang, and his message was short. We've got raiders hitting us twice a week. Lost 6 workers last month. If your warriors can stop that, we'll pay whatever you want. Hyun showed the message to Kira the next day. They had been working on learning each other's languages, using a translation device Hyun had brought. It was old and glitchy, but it helped. Kira understood enough. Raiders are thieves who attack with weapons, Hyun explained. They want the colony's metal and equipment. The colony needs protection. Kira called Nari over and spoke in their language. Nari nodded and said something back. Through the translator, her words came out choppy. We protect well. Need details. Enemy numbers. Weapons type, Hyun grinned. I'll find out everything you need to know. 3 days later, Hyun's cargo hauler lifted off with 5 Velrathi warriors inside. Kira had chosen Nari to lead the team, along with Mira and 3 veterans named Hana, Yoonji, and Sora. They wore their traditional armor, leather-like material reinforced with metal plates from the crashed ship. Their weapons were sharp blades and spears, primitive by galactic standards, but Hyun had seen them train. They were deadly with those weapons. The flight to Digging Deep took an hour. The warriors were quiet, looking out the windows at the landscape below. Hyun noticed Mira seemed nervous, tapping her fingers against her spear. This was probably her first real mission since the crash. You okay? Hyun asked her. Mira looked at him and nodded. Through the translator on her belt, she said, I am worried. What if we fail? What if the colony rejects us? You won't fail, Hyun said. And I'll make sure they treat you with respect. That's my job, to make sure both sides understand each other. When they landed at Digging Deep, Taeyang was waiting with a dozen miners. The miners stared at the Velrathi with a mixture of fear and awe as they exited the ship. Nari stood tall, hand on her weapon but not threatening. The other warriors flanked her, looking professional and alert. Taeyang stepped forward. He was a short man with a scarred face and mechanical arm. Clearly someone who had worked hard all his life. He looked the warriors up and down, then nodded to Hyun. They look tough, he said. But can they actually fight? Show me where the raiders usually attack, Nari said through her translator. We will show you what we can do. Over the next hour, Taeyang explained the situation. The raiders came in fast vehicles, usually at night, armed with energy weapons. They would grab what they could and leave before anyone could respond. The colony had basic defenses, but not enough people to guard everything. Nari listened carefully, asking questions through Hyun when the translator struggled. Where did the raiders come from? How many in each attack? What were their patterns? Taeyang was impressed by her tactical thinking. They usually hit the eastern storage area, he said, pointing to a cluster of buildings. That's where we keep the processed ore before shipping. Nari studied the area, then spoke to her team in their language. The warriors spread out, examining the buildings and the surrounding terrain. After 20 minutes, they regrouped. Nari explained her plan through the translator. We set 3 guards here, here, and here. She pointed to elevated positions. When raiders come, we let them enter the storage area. Then we close trap. Warriors come from 3 sides. Raiders caught in middle, nowhere to run. You want to ambush them? Taeyang asked. Yes. Ambush once, hurt them badly, they will not return. Better than fighting many times. Taeyang looked at Hyun. Your translator is pretty sure that's what she said? Hyun nodded. The Velrathi don't waste time. One decisive strike is their style. All right, Taeyang said. We'll try it your way. But if anyone gets hurt, no colony workers will be in danger, Nari interrupted. Only warriors in the fight. This is our job. That night, the Velrathi took their positions. Hyun stayed with Taeyang in the command center, watching through security cameras. The miners had gone to their quarters as instructed. Everything was quiet. Hours passed. Hyun started to wonder if the raiders would even come tonight. Then, at 3 in the morning, lights appeared on the horizon. 3 fast-moving vehicles racing toward the colony. Taeyang tensed. That's them. The vehicles crashed through the perimeter fence and skidded to a stop near the storage building. 8 raiders jumped out armed with energy rifles. They moved quickly, clearly experienced at this. 2 stayed with the vehicles while 6 rushed inside the building. Now, Taeyang whispered, even though no one could hear him. On the screens, 3 Velrathi warriors dropped from the roof. Silent as shadows, they moved behind the raiders at the vehicles. Before the raiders could react, the warriors struck. 2 quick blows and both raiders were on the ground unconscious. Inside the building, the other 6 raiders were loading ore containers when Nari's team attacked from 3 directions, just as planned. The fight was over in seconds. The raiders never got off a single shot. They were trained criminals, but they weren't warriors. The Velrathi disarmed them easily, using the flat of their blades to knock them down without killing. Within 5 minutes of arriving, all 8 raiders were tied up and groaning in pain. Not one had escaped. Not one was dead, though several had broken bones. The Velrathi stood guard over them, barely breathing hard. Taeyang stared at the screens in disbelief. I've never seen anything like that, Hyun smiled. I told you they were good. The colony security forces arrived to take the raiders away. Taeyang came out to meet the Velrathi warriors personally. Nari was cleaning blood off her blade, not her own blood. That was... Taeyang struggled for words. That was incredible. You made it look easy. It was easy, Nari said simply. These raiders were not real warriors. Just criminals with weapons. Will you stay? Taeyang asked. We can pay well. And honestly, after tonight I don't think we'll have raider problems anymore. But there are other dangers out here. Animals, accidents, the usual frontier problems. We could use warriors like you on permanent guard duty. Nari looked at Hyun, who nodded encouragingly. She turned back to Taeyang. We will discuss with our chieftain. But yes, I think we can arrange this. The news spread fast. By the time Hyun returned to the crash site the next morning, 3 more settlements had sent messages asking about the Velrathi warriors. The spectacular success at digging deep had changed everything. Suddenly, the dangerous aliens weren't so dangerous. They were valuable. Kira listened to Hyun's report with satisfaction. Our warriors performed well? Better than well, perfectly. Taeyang wants to hire your team permanently, and we have 3 more requests for security services. Kira stood and looked out at her warriors, who were busy salvaging materials from the crashed ship. We need settlement here first. Then we send more warriors to work. Agreed. I've been thinking about that. Hyun pulled out his datapad. I contacted a construction company that works on frontier planets. They're willing to help build proper structures for you. Not charity, you'll pay them back with security contracts. Pay back? Kira's translator struggled with the concept. Like a loan. They help you now, you give them money later. It's normal for new settlements. Kira considered this. This is acceptable. We pay our debts. Always. Over the next 2 weeks, things moved fast. The construction company arrived and began building. Not fancy buildings, but solid structures designed for Threshold 9's harsh climate. Living quarters, a command center, storage facilities. The Velrathi worked alongside the construction workers, learning as they helped. More warrior teams went out to other settlements. Each mission was successful. The Velrathi's reputation grew. They were professional, efficient, and incredibly effective. Word reached the Galactic Council that the dangerous aliens were now providing valuable services to multiple frontier colonies. A council representative arrived on Threshold 9. Her name was Ji-won, a human diplomat with sharp eyes and a kind smile. Hyun met her at the landing pad near the new settlement. So you're the crazy human who started all this, she said, shaking his hand. I just helped them get started, Hyun said. They did the rest themselves. You did more than that. Do you know how rare it is for a first contact situation to turn around like this? We had written them off. You saved 60 lives. 52, Hyun corrected quietly. 8 died in the crash, Ji-won's expression softened. Then you saved 52. Come on, I need to meet their leader officially. The meeting between Ji-won and Kira was formal but friendly. Through translators, they worked out the official recognition of the Velrathi settlement. The quarantine would be lifted. The Velrathi would be registered as legal residents of Threshold 9, with full rights to establish their colony. At the ceremony that evening, Kira gave a speech to all her warriors. Hyun stood beside her, translating for the other species who had come to witness this moment. We came to this world as dying strangers, Kira said. The galaxy turned away from us. But one person did not turn away. One person saw us not as dangerous aliens, but as people who needed help. Because of that, we survived. Because of that, we will thrive. She turned to Hyun. In front of everyone, 4 months had passed since the crash. The Velrathi settlement on Threshold 9 didn't look anything like the wreckage it had started from. Solid buildings stood where tents had been. Gardens grew in carefully maintained soil, brought in from off-world. A training ground occupied the center of the settlement, where warriors practiced their skills every morning. Hyun walked through the settlement's main path, greeting warriors he now knew by name. Hana waved from where she was teaching a group of young miners basic self-defense. Sora was inspecting equipment at the armory, making sure everything was properly maintained. Yoonji was coming back from a patrol, her team tired but satisfied. Life had found a rhythm here. The crashed ship still stood at the edge of the settlement, but now it was a monument. The Velrathi had cleaned it, reinforced it, and turned it into a memorial for the 8 who had died. Names were carved into the metal in their flowing script. Fresh flowers were placed there every morning. Hyun found Kira in her command center studying reports on a data screen. She had adapted to technology quickly. Though she still preferred face-to-face communication, she looked up and smiled when she saw him. Hyun, good timing. I wanted to show you something. She pulled up a map of the region. Little markers showed all the places where Velrathi warriors were currently working. 15 different locations, from small mining outposts to larger colonies. Each marker was green, indicating successful contracts. We are doing well, Kira said. Her understanding of the common language had improved dramatically. She barely needed the translator now. Every settlement wants Velrathi guards now. Some we have to turn down because we do not have enough warriors. That's a good problem to have, Hyun said. Yes, but it makes me think. We are 52 warriors. On our homeworld, we numbered in the thousands. If we found more of our people, your homeworld is 3 months away by fast ship, Yun said gently. And from what you've told me, the situation there was bad. Political fighting, resource wars. That's why you left, Kira nodded slowly. True, but perhaps some would want to join us here. This new beginning we have made. Send a message. See if any respond. But remember, what you've built here is special. Don't rush to change it. There was a knock on the door. Nari entered, followed by a human woman Hyun didn't recognize. The woman wore the uniform of the Galactic Council, but with more decorations than Jiwon had worn. Chieftain Kira, this is Council Administrator Lee Dabin, Nari said formally. She says she has important business. Dabin bowed respectfully, then looked at Hyun with surprise. You're still here? I thought you were just a supply runner passing through. I decided to stay, Hyun said. Someone needs to help with translation and cultural issues. Plus, the coffee here is terrible, and I keep hoping to teach them how to make it properly. Kira snorted. Your earth coffee tastes like dirt water. Our warriors prefer clean tea. See? Hyun said to Dabin. Cultural differences everywhere. Dabin smiled, but then her expression turned serious. I'm here because the council has been watching this settlement closely. What's happened here is unprecedented. You've gone from a crisis situation to a thriving community in just 4 months. The council wants to document this as a model for future first contact situations. Document how? Kira asked carefully. Interviews, reports, maybe even observers staying here for a while? Nothing invasive. We just want to understand how this worked when everything said it shouldn't. No offense, but the statistical probability of this outcome was less than 2%. What changed the statistics? Kira asked. Dabin looked at Hyun. Him, mostly. One person who decided to ignore everyone's warnings and help anyway. The council wants to understand why he succeeded where our trained diplomats would have failed. Hyun felt uncomfortable. I just brought them food. They did everything else themselves. You brought more than food, Kira said firmly. You brought respect. You saw us as equals, not charity cases or threats. That made all the difference. Dabin took notes on her data pad. Can you explain your decision-making process, Hyun? What made you think this would work?
Hyun thought about it.
I watched the attack videos. The Velrathi only defended their territory. They never pursued. That told me they weren't aggressive, they were scared and protecting what little they had. Everyone else saw dangerous aliens. I saw desperate people. The rest was just being stubborn about helping them. Stubborn? Kira repeated, amused. Yes, very stubborn. Even when we threatened to kill him, he kept coming back. In your culture, how do you view his actions? Dabin asked Kira. Kira was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. In Velrathi tradition, there is a concept called kurvalan. It means to see the soul beneath the skin. Most beings look at others and see only the surface, the differences, the threats, the unknowns. Yun practiced kurvalan. He looked at us and saw past our weapons and our anger. He saw that we were warriors, yes, but also survivors who wanted to live. To practice kurvalan requires great courage, because you must make yourself vulnerable to truly see another. Hyun did this. That is why we trust him, Dabin wrote furiously. That's beautiful, and it explains a lot about why this worked. Over the next few days, Dabin interviewed many warriors and visiting colonists. She attended the evening gatherings where humans and Velrathi shared meals and stories. She watched Mira teaching human children basic Velrathi combat moves while they giggled and tried to copy her. She saw Taeyang from Digging Deep negotiating a new contract with Nari, both of them joking like old friends despite barely being able to communicate 4 months ago. On her last evening, the Velrathi held a celebration. It was a tradition they had brought from their home world, meant to honor successful partnerships. The whole settlement gathered in the central area as the sun set. Warriors in their formal armor stood in formation. Human colonists from nearby settlements attended as guests. Even some representatives from other alien species came, curious to see what all the attention was about. Kira stood before the crowd. Beside her, Hyun felt nervous even though he didn't know why. 4 months ago, we crashed on this world, Kira began. We were dying and the galaxy left us to die. We were angry. We were proud. We refused help because we saw it as weakness. And we would have died here holding on to our pride until the end. She turned to look at Hyun. Then a human came. He brought food we refused to take. He sat at our border day after day, showing no fear. He was patient when we were angry. He was kind when we were cruel. He offered not charity but partnership. He gave us a way to keep our honor while accepting help. Because of this, we live. Because of this, we thrive. Kira drew her blade. He tensed, but she reversed it, offering him the handle. In our tradition, a warrior's blade is their soul. To give another your blade is to trust them with your life. I gave Hyun the title of kinfriend. Today, I give more. She pressed the blade's handle into his hand. The warriors all drew their own blades and held them high. In unison, they spoke in their language. The translators rendered it, "We stand with you. Your enemies are our enemies. Your family is our family. Your honor is our honor." Hyun held the blade carefully. It was heavier than he expected, perfectly balanced. He could see his reflection in the polished metal. "I don't know what to say." "Say you will continue to stand with us," Kira said. "Say you will be the bridge between our people and this galaxy that did not understand us." "I will," Hyun said quietly, then louder so everyone could hear. "I will." The celebration that followed went long into the night. Music played, a mix of Velrathi drums and human instruments. Food was shared. Stories were told. Hyun found himself surrounded by warriors who wanted to thank him, by colonists who wanted to shake his hand, by officials who wanted to understand how he did it. But the best moment came later when things had quieted down. Hyun was sitting near the monument to the fallen eight, just thinking. Mira found him there. She sat down beside him without saying anything for a while. "I almost died," she said eventually. "That day when I collapsed. If you had not helped me, I would have died like the others. Now I am teaching human children. I am protecting colonists. I am living a life I never imagined. Because you did not give up on us. You did the living," Hyun said. "I just opened a door. You all walked through it. Maybe," Mira said. "But you opened a door everyone else kept locked. That matters." 3 weeks later, Hyun got a message on his ship's communicator. It was from a settlement called New Jakarta, 2 systems away. They had a situation. A group of refugees from a dying planet had arrived without warning. They were scared, aggressive, and the local population wanted them removed by force. Would Hyun come help? Hyun looked out at the Velrathi settlement. He thought about Kira, Nari, Mira, and all the others. He thought about how the galaxy had been ready to let them die, and how everything changed because one person decided to care. He sent a message back, "I'll be there in 3 days." Before he left, he visited Kira one last time. She was overseeing construction of a new building, a school where Velrathi warriors could teach their arts to anyone who wanted to learn. "New Jakarta?" she asked. She had already heard. "Yeah, sounds familiar, doesn't it? Like us 4 months ago," Kira smiled. "You are going